Happy Mushoku Mondays, everybody. Welcome back to yet another trek through the Mushoku Tensei Jobless Reincarnation novel series. We're on Volume 23, Chapter 1. Time to open up another one. Let's see how this one does. Are we going to get back up in that S tier? I don't know. Based on what we're already hitting on, it looks like it might be pretty epic. We're going on an adventure again. We got all the wives together. Reese has got the trio. He's got the trio going out on an adventure. And it has me really, really excited. So many doors are opening up with this first two chapters. And I'm already loving it. I honestly feel like towards the later part of the last volume, I'm starting to think like I almost kind of want the status quo to change. I'm kind of wanting to get away from this Orsted Corporation stuff. I think a lot of that stuff has kind of stagnated things, and I'm really excited to see where this goes. Looks like a lot of my theories that I was cooking up last Mushoku Monday kind of flipped on its head. Like I'm going this whole crazy theory about, him hiding it from Orsted and going to Perugius first, and then Perugius kind of working with him to hide it from Orsted. But no, he goes to Orsted first. Honestly, it really does show how much he trusts Orsted. Rudius really does trust Orsted, and I really do feel like that's warranted. Orsted has almost become a part of the family. But anyways, I'm getting into it already, but thank you guys so much for dropping by for the premiere. Hey, chat. Hope you guys are doing well. Hope you guys have a great rest of your Mushoku Monday after Mushoku Monday. As per usual, the easiest way that you guys can support the channel is just hitting that like button down there. It's free. And yes, as per usual, greatly appreciate everybody's kind words, all your guys' support, sharing out Mushoku Monday, making Mushoku Monday what it is. It wouldn't be this without you guys. And yes, as per usual, greatly appreciate everybody's support channel monetarily through Patreon, tips, links, super thanks, memberships, all that stuff. It means a great deal to me. Last week we had Gearless with another massive super. Thank you so much, Gearless. As per usual, you're amazing. Cannot express enough. Really greatly appreciate your support. David with a membership, 11 months. He's been sneaking that membership. Oh, I'm calling him out right now. Kusha with a super. Thank you so much, Kusha. Inferno Torch with some massive supers as well. Thank you so much, Inferno Torch. You're amazing. Thank you. And Sergio Dono with a gifted membership, giving somebody else those amazing emotes. Thank you so much. But yes, with all that said, let's dive into it. Chapter 1, The Green-Haired Baby. The green-haired baby. Sorry, it just immediately came to mind. The green-haired baby. Anyways. Sylphiette perspective. It's time to answer all the questions that I was speculating last Mushoku Monday. Sylphie had a dream once. It was around the time Rudy went off to the Dragon King realm. In it, there was a crying child. A group of dark shadows surrounded her. They ganged up on that child and threw pitch-black lumps of something at her. The child desperately tried to run, but they would always follow. The child ran towards a light. As she approached it, it tossed balls of light at the shadows before they dispersed. The light then gently enveloped the child as she drifted off to sleep. I wonder what that's referring to. I wonder what that symbolism is. Sylphie being bullied and then Rudius showing up. Now, I will say that with this layout, I kind of wonder what it might mean for the later layout. When she first had that dream, she thought it was about her past. A dream about the old days when the village kids bullied her. She believed that she was dreaming about it after all this time as a sign of how much she loved Rudy. That was all she thought about when she laid down and wriggled happily like a little girl. Several months later, around the time that Rudy was off to the Demon Continent, she had another dream just like that. This time, it went differently. The green-haired child was here, but instead of having her face, the child now had Rudy's. He was being chased by dark shadows. There was no light where the child was heading. Sylphie panicked and dashed up to the child, desperate to protect it from the shadows. Without her magic, she could only try and swat the shadows away with her bare hands. The shadows were tenacious, refusing to stay away. She could feel the child shuddering. After the dream, she was worried that some harm might come to Rudy. Maybe he'd been injured or captured. No, he couldn't. He had Edis and Roxy with him. She thought long and hard about what to do to help, and in the end, Rudy returned home that very day. It calmed her worries, but sprung new ones. Yeah, here's a damn it 7 Seas moment. We're only in this first chapter, and we already have our first damn it 7 Seas moment. And of course, you guys don't notice it because I have it changed to third perspective rather than first perspective because it's easier to read that way. I thought long and hard about what to do to help. In the end, I returned home that very day. I returned home, like Rudius and everybody else is gone, and I'm kind of worried, but it's okay because I returned home. You're already home. Rudius returned home? He returned home? It's kind of dumb, but whatever. Already in the first pages of the new volume, this is a bad sign. She wondered if that dream was about the child inside her. She told herself she was fretting over nothing. There was no way that Rudy wouldn't protect their child. There had to be a light awaiting them. She convinced herself that the pregnancy nerves were just getting to her. She put the dream out of her mind. Eventually, Rudy returned from the demon continent. Obviously, the first dream that she's talking about is herself. She's recalling herself. And this goes into my theory that I had was obviously she was fearful because of her own experiences. That's the most obvious thing. That's not really a theory. Oh my gosh, and just crazy, crazy theories. But one of the theories I had was that she already knew that would be a boy. And she had a feeling it would be a boy. And it seems like she's already telling that right here because the child in her mind has Rudy's face, has a boy's face, has a boy's features, which would be more matching to Rudius. So that was kind of my theory there, and it seems like it matching up. It does get later on into more of my theory and the idea of the Laplace aspect and everything else, so that looks like that's kind of confirmed there. But in the middle of it all, like I was saying, it's like put everything else aside, this is the core issue that Sylphie's having right now. The core issue is green hair. What's going to come to her child? She goes, here's me, here's back when I was being bullied, and now I have this new child, and she's already connecting that they're going to get bullied. And it's odd because she doesn't specifically say green hair, if I remember correctly. Like, it's just literally, here's a child that doesn't no longer have my face, but has Rudy's. Now, you can assume this child that looked like me in Buena Village, it would have green hair. It's just that she's not specifically saying it. She's not specifically saying anything about the green hair. She's just specifically saying this child that's pretty much me being attacked by shadows. That's probably Buena Village. It's probably those bullies. It's probably that. It is interesting, though, to note that it is pointing it more as shadows and light. It's going specifically into shadows and lights. There's a child. Shadows are attacking it. A light saves it. Now, that simply can be in the idea of here's the bad thing. It's coming to attack the child. It's being overcome by this bad thing. And then suddenly out of nowhere, the light, the good and evil, angels and devils, that kind of stuff. It's just going that basic element of light versus dark. But it does beg the question, is this being a little bit too specific? Or is this a trauma in her mind? Are these dreams about a trauma? Or are they symbolisms of a what's to come? Are they symbolisms of some sort of force that might come to harm her child? Is it simply that she's putting her child that's in her stomach into her own trauma? Or is that she's having a premonition of something to come after her child? Not bullies. A dark force. Some sort of dark force. Could it be the idea of the Laplace aspect? Could she be right here dreaming about the idea of all of these Laplace aspects coming after her child? I mean, yes, spoilers for those that read along with my actual Mushoku Mondays. It does technically get to a point where you have at least Orsted saying, no, it's not Laplace. But, as Rudy has kind of put several times, does he really know? He's made a lot of mistakes. He's fallible. I know this is a shocker to the Orsted fans out there. I'm sorry, this is what Rudy says. We all know that Orsted is perfect. Orsted makes no mistakes. If he does do something, it's like Aisha. If Aisha does something wrong, it's not that she did something wrong, it's just the world was wrong, and thus it makes it wrong. She was actually right, it's just the laws of the world messed it up. Anyways, there's going to be a lot of emphasis on it not being Laplace, but this could be the building of it. What's to say that when Laplace is born, it's just a normal child? A baby's born. It's not Laplace. It's just a baby. And the baby, as it comes out, it's into the world. It's maybe it might actually live for maybe a year before suddenly the spirit of Laplace, like the rebirth of Laplace, then comes into the child. It's not initially Laplace, it's just those aspects come into the child. What if the shadows are a symbolism of those aspects and everything sort of forming together to come together to make the child? The reason why I kind of go down that rabbit hole is that, yes, we've seen a lot explained about how Laplace is reborn, but not necessarily like the details, like the moment-to-moment details of how that happens. It could be that this child initially isn't Laplace, but becomes Laplace. And I think that's sort of shown in what Perugius is doing. What Perugius' response is, which we'll get into later on, I think it's sort of a sign there about sort of not having that urgency. It feels off. There's something that really feels off about it. And it could be just Perugius respecting Rudius. It could be something else. But I think this is a sign of that. That not so much this is a child being attacked just like I was, being bullied just like I was, which could be. It could be that simple in Sylphie's mind. It could be something more. It could be her seeing a premonition of something. Something's going to come for my child. Not bullies, a dark force. Something is going to want to possess it. Something's going to want to take its life. Something's going to want to kill it. Something's going to want to use it. That stuff. Really cool. Interesting. Hot coffee. Hot coffee. Anyways, Rudius returned. This would be the second time, I would assume, because it said earlier, then Rudius returned, calmed her nerves, and then he would have probably gone back to the Midgardian village. And so here, this is when he actually returns again. She asked about the baby's name. Since it had been 6 months since he said that he'd think of one, she could have waited until the birth, but she wanted to know in advance, in case he left for another trip. That makes sense. I'm sorry, I still haven't thought about a name. In that moment, the dream flitted across her mind. That's the Pale. That's the Pale. The vision of the child surrounded by dark shadows. Then the worst one came to her mind. Did Rudy love this child? This is a rough thing. Of course he did. She was sure of it. I like that it fixed itself very quickly. This is a fleeting thought. This is why I keep talking about this idea of thinking about something horrible, but acknowledging that it's just a fleeting thought. You took no action on it. You don't actually believe it. You don't confirm it to yourself. It's a fleeting thought. What if this person doesn't like me? What if this person doesn't love me? What if this person doesn't love my child? What if he doesn't love me? What if he doesn't like her? That fleeting thought. I hate this person. I hate my mom. I hate my dad. Those fleeting thoughts, those horrible thoughts that just jumps in there temporarily. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay to have those random thoughts. Of course, it's always if you act on it. But yeah, right here, this would probably be the point of pale. Like I said, when that first happened and Rudius noted her face was pale, she hates me. She's done with me. She's getting sick of me. The pale part stood out to me as something of a terrified. Now, my theory at that time was the idea that she was already thinking that it might be a boy, and she was afraid that somebody else was going to name it. And she was already having fears of the green hair. This is it. She thought about that dream. She thought about that child being attacked. And what did she say when she seen that child being attacked? It's okay, Rudy will protect him. Rudy will protect this child. And now right here, she's getting a semblance that Rudy doesn't care. Which is so interesting because, again, something I noted way back there. And again, this was pre-Sylphie deciding at that point that her job was done with Ariel and she wants to be the mom. She wants to be the mom of her children. Her focus and everything about her went to, I want to raise the children. I want to love and care for them and raise them to be proper adults. Before then, early moments of Sylphie and Rudy together, she was giving him a child. She wasn't having a child for herself. She was giving Rudius a child. So it's great right here to see the after effects of that change in Sylphie's life back there after Ariel and all that stuff, to see that contrast to those old days right here where she's fearful that Rudius no longer cares for the children. Again, a fleeting thought randomly pops in her head. The child is in danger. Rudy will protect him. Wait, does Rudy not care anymore? These children that I'm giving Rudy, does he not care about them anymore? She's become the nurturer and the protector of them now, but it's almost like she's fearing that he's no longer a part of it anymore. Anyways, of course he did. She was sure of it. That night, however, she had a dream again. Now here's where it gets really worse. She ran as fast as she could to help, but she didn't make it. When she reached the child, she found the shadows had gone, and the child was dead. That makes it worse. Now she has sort of a trauma in her mind of a child that, let's face it, at this point is connected to her own child that's in her stomach. That child that's in her belly, that child has been killed by whatever this force is. She woke up drenched in sweat. She told herself that it was just pregnancy nerves, just a dream. She wanted to believe that, but her mind kept racing. If the baby inherited her green hair, they'd almost certainly face discrimination because of it. The same way she had. Now she's finally mentioning the hair. While the most she had to deal with was neighborhood bullies, there was no guarantee that her child would be so fortunate. Something far, far worse could be waiting for them. And again, this is totally natural to have that fear of your child, to fear for your child. But at the same time, it is interesting that she's sort of downplaying her own issue here, but she's still acknowledging the fear of it, the danger of it, the danger that something can come after my child. Which is interesting because she's already acknowledging it's just neighborhood bullies over here, but there's something more here. She's already making this into something bigger than it really is. Again, because we've already noted, there's plenty of people here that have green hair. It's not the thing here. There's something else. She's fearing something else. She knew Rudy would protect them, whether they had green hair or not. Edis would do the same, and so would Roxy. Her head told her that, but her heart was still worried. It didn't take long to realize why. She knew about the Laplace factor. She knew why the color of her hair was green, and why Rudy had gotten a bit uneasy over the subject a while back. Interesting, I don't remember them ever discussing that with Sylphie. And now, granted, Rudius could have just told her. She could have overheard it from somebody else. Rudius talking to somebody else about it. I just don't recall. Again, this might be one of those things where I just maybe don't recall it, but it was there. I just don't remember that conversation. What if the child she gave birth to turned out to be Laplace? She put it all together. Girl put it all together. She wondered, what would Rudy do? It wasn't his priority now, but he was gathering forces to battle Laplace. If her child really was Laplace, given what Rudy had done so far, she couldn't help but wonder. Legitimate worry. Again, because from Sylphie's perspective, she's at home taking care of the kids and the family and the house. And what is Rudy doing? Over the last few years, all Rudius is doing is constantly away helping Orsted and building up a massive army. He's barely home. Why would he care about this child that he didn't even take the time to make a name for? I'm sorry, I wouldn't blame her for having a little bit of fear there. She believed in Rudy. She wouldn't doubt him for a second. But what would he do? What would she want him to do? Her mind spun on these thoughts for so long that she didn't get another wink of sleep that night. She comforted herself in the fact that there was no way their child's hair would be green. If their hair turned out to be any other color, they'd be fine. It was green. I like how hidden this segment is like, it's green. It's green. Cut off. Let's not get any more inner dialogue. Let's just cut it off there. I like that it keeps jumping back to Sylphie. This is one of those rare, really good chapters where it constantly keeps giving us other perspectives besides Rudius. I love other perspectives, especially in a situation like this that does seem to be affecting characters a lot. Back to Rudius's perspective. Rudius named the baby Sighart. The name of all of his girls came from the mothers, while Aris was named after a famous hero in history. Rudius decided to take inspiration from the invincible hero of his old world, Siegfried. He thought of just going with Siegfried, but Renoa had a lot of names that went something Hart, so he tagged that on at the last minute. It's so bad. It's so bad. I mean, there's something cool here about the idea of here's my new baby. I haven't thought of a name yet, but let me just go ahead and call him Siegfried. This invincible hero. Slap on Hart. Just last minute, slap that on there. There you go. Good enough, right? It's good, right? Sylphie, wake up. I named it. I did it. I did it in time. They called him Sieg for short. He seemed like a perfectly normal child. Well, given that Lotta barely cried and Aris was bawling the second they held him, Sieg was plenty normal in comparison. As for being a reincarnate of Laplace, he didn't look like him. What does Laplace look like? Not as far. It's like here's an infant in my hands. Doesn't look like Laplace. I was expecting like a cloak and some horns or something like that. Not as far as I could tell, anyways. Seriously though, what's going on with my kid? 3 days had passed since Armanfi appeared with a summons. Right now, in the middle of the night, Rudius was sitting across from Orsted. Between them laid Sieg, who snoozed in his cradle. He'd been crying up until a moment ago, but now fast asleep. Orsted seemed a bit tuckered out himself. Edis was standing behind Orsted, hand on her sword hanging at her waist. Going through this a second time, I'm starting to question that. Because, yeah, the first time I went through this, it goes, Orsted is a bit tuckered out. Orsted looks tired. I don't think we've ever implied Orsted ever being tired. So it kind of stands out to me whenever it gives some sort of semblance of Orsted's physical being. I would have figured they would have brought it up by now at this point, but it sort of does make me wonder if, yes, one of the things that they mentioned is that the destinies are very weak whenever a woman is pregnant. I kind of wonder with like the pregnancy and like the birth of the child, I wonder if that entire time Orsted was somewhere nearby fighting off something that was coming to kill Rudius while the destinies were all messed up. I don't know. I kind of want to think that like Orsted's nearby just being like the ultimate grandpa of the family, just protecting everybody. Did you not understand me the first time? Oh, no, of course. I absolutely understand. And I believe you. Laplace hasn't been born yet. So our child can't be Laplace. Right. Absolutely. I understand full well. But, you said it before, no? Now that Pax is dead, you don't know how Laplace will be born anymore. Meaning, maybe my presence threw a wrench in everything. Maybe Laplace will appear earlier. Or maybe it's the man god's interference. And that, well, maybe that'd make it possible. Reus shrank into his seat as his begging continued. Orsted simply sighed, looking exasperated at having to explain things again. Maybe that's why he looks tuckered out. He's like, for the 534th time, Rudius is not, it's not Laplace, Rudius, stop. I want to go to bed. I got things to do. Pax's death means I no longer know where Laplace will be born, but the Laplace factors have yet to be fully gathered. It could happen in about 50 years' time, but Laplace wouldn't be born now, not under any circumstances. This makes me kind of wonder, does Orsted have an idea of where these factors are and how they're gathering? Again, here's hitting again that these factors have been factors. I hate that they're changing the name again. They're changing the name again. Why can we not keep consistent? These factors are spread around the world. Like, all of these people are being born with factors. Rudius has a factor. Sylphie has a factor. These factors, these aspects of themselves, are spread throughout different people. They're born with them. But it implies they have to gather. And that would imply the idea that Orsted has a semblance of where they're at. Or at least knows how fast that they would be gathered over a period of time. Through generations, I would guess, if they would be gathered over time. If the people that have those aspects, if they have to be dead or not. It could be a thing where they're gathering and they can be born in people, but it's not as if they're stopping. It's not like these aspects as they're going through time and it hits Rudius and he gets one of the aspects and suddenly it's stuck there until Rudius dies and then it can go to the child. Or more so that it kind of passes by the child. They get born with that, but it's not as if the aspect stops. If that's the case, how does Orsted have a semblance of how this is flowing? How this is gathering? That's the question mark. Unless you're just going strictly based on the usual times that Laplace is born. The usual times that he shows up. But at least here he's giving a sense that, yeah, let's give it a 60-year buffer. It could happen 30 years earlier. It could happen 30 years later. He's given a buffer now. Rudius didn't recall hearing about the factors need to be gathered. But for now, he believed him. Then what is my child? Simply your darling infant son. Orsted offered his hand out to Sieg. He pulled it back, however, after hearing the clink of Edis's sword being flicked up from its sheath. Rudius felt like Edis was being a helicopter parent. She could let the guy pet his head. Yeah, I felt so bad about this. Like, oh, it's so sweet. Like, Rudius is over there going, then what is my child? And then Orsted's over here like, simply your darling infant child. It's like, it's such like a Papa Orsted right here. He just like, it's your darling child. Orsted is like, simply, it's your darling child. What's the problem here, Rudius? It's your child. Isn't it so cute? And then Edis has to mess it all up. Edis is such a protective girl to her family. Edis loves her family so much and protects everybody. I love it. So what about the green hair? It's simply green. It could be due to the Laplace factor, or it could be mere genetics. But there's nothing more to it than that. This child is not Laplace. That I can assure you. Got it. Thank you. There you have it. Orsted said it. It's got to be true, right? Again, I really do feel like there's a 2-point aspect here. One is that, yeah, as Rudius will get into later, Orsted can make mistakes. But 2, it could be a mirror aspect of not yet. Not yet. How exactly does that system work? Now, Orsted could know full well how exactly that system works and that it has to be immediate. But then the question mark is, how does he know? How does he know by looking at this child that it's not Laplace? Is there something there? Is there an aura? Is he using some sort of identification spell or something like that to know? Is it simply that this child didn't look at Orsted and say, what up, bro? What up, dude? Yeah, it's saying Gugu. It's definitely not him. He'd be cussing at me right now. Rudius still had room for doubt. Orsted wasn't infallible. It might not have happened in the prior loops, but this loop had proven that it was a first for everything. Orsted had made his share of miscalculations already. That was why Rudius couldn't shake the possibility of Perugius examining Sieg, concluding he was Laplace and deciding to kill him on the spot. That, or the possibility of Perugius making a mistake. There's the other thing. It could be, okay, Orsted says it's not, and you're like, cool, let's go up to talk to Perugius. It's not. And they go up there and Perugius, just trying to be careful. What if he makes that mistake? Again, there's no like identification spell that they could just use and it happens. There's no guarantees on how people could act. Even legendary heroes messed up sometimes. If you wouldn't mind, could you perhaps come with us to Lord Perugius' castle And maybe protect us if he says Sieg is Laplace? Very well. Love Orsted. Love Orsted so much. Orsted let out another sigh. He was irritated that the chat he was trying to talk some sense into would propose something this pointless. He's like, it's all right, dude, whatever. Fine. On the other hand, Perugius would be more careful if Orsted was backing him up. Very true. Very, very true. Quite the glum look. What? You're still worried about something? Well, a bit. Ever since the birth, Sylphie was ejected. Nothing about how she acted changed, but she hung her head a little more often. Maybe she felt responsible for Sieg's hair. Nobody in the family blamed her. The most Rudius saw was Roxy giving Sylphie some counseling, but Sylphie's gloom persisted. He tried to strike up a conversation with her plenty of times, but had no idea how to bring her smile back. But that's a family matter. I see. So, when will we be leaving to see Perugius? Well, once Sylphie recovers a bit more, Rudius told Armanfi to wait, that they couldn't go immediately after the child was born. Armanfi said he understood, and left without another word. But Perugius was probably getting impatient. He didn't waste time after sending a messenger after all. Orsted said that his son wasn't Laplace, but Perugius wouldn't be satisfied with their word alone. He'd have to see for himself to be sure. It wasn't going to be easy, but Rudius wanted Sylphie to come with him. He had a feeling that it would be for the best. Good old Orsted going to be protecting them. I love that. Again, super shocker there. Again, for those that missed last Mushoku Monday, my theory was the idea that Rudius was going to go to Perugius first without the child and make some sort of agreement with Perugius, because in the idea that if Perugius knows that Orsted was going to want him dead once Laplace is dead so he can get the keys to get to the man god, there might be a thing there where Rudius would want to protect the child, possibly work with Perugius, if Perugius had the mindset that even if he kills Laplace, a new one will be born later on, just to kind of keep it hostage, basically. And that would protect them from Orsted. And then Rudius, during that time, will find another way to get to the man god, because he's going to want the man god dead. Like, no matter what, Rudius, in the idea of Laplace being in his child, like his child being Laplace, it creates a conflict for Rudius in the idea that, that's the key. That's the key to get to the man god to stop all of this. What do I do? Well, find a different way and protect my child. That's an interesting way there. I like how later on with Perugius, he's even questioned that. But that's your goal, right? That's your goal, though. What are you talking about? That doesn't make any sense. Why? And I think a lot of that really gets into the mind of Perugius and how he doesn't see family. He doesn't get family. I don't understand why you're protecting them. It doesn't make any sense to me. It doesn't click. So show me. I think that's how it comes to the end. It's show me. We'll get in that in a minute. I am just so getting ahead of myself with this one. 20 days passed. For now, there didn't seem to be anything wrong with our child. He seemed perfectly healthy, if anything. Sylphie, on the other hand, while her health recovered, her mood hadn't. She constantly had a glum look on her face. During the day, she would hold the baby tightly in her arms, flashes of determination in her eyes as she did, as though she would declare that she wouldn't hand this child over to anyone. Sylphie, I think we should let Lord Perugius look at Sieg. Sylphie looked stunned, holding Sieg even closer. I don't wanna. She pouted weakly in response. Sounded like she regressed to her childhood. The look on her face reverted as well, but not to one that she'd ever shown Rudius. This must have been the face that she had shown to her bullies. That's very interesting. That is very interesting. Now, it doesn't seem to play off this too much, but I really did wonder when this happened, if this would actually turn to an idea of her regressing. Her mind itself regressing back there. It doesn't feel like they really play on that again towards a later part, at least for these chapters. But I was really kind of stunned that moment this happened. I'm like, could we really have Sylphie get so traumatized by this experience, by her dreams, and seeing the child in her hands, seeing green hair on a child really is the key thing there. This idea of seeing her reflection, seeing this child that she once seen in a mirror, and going, holy crap, this is me. And it regresses her mind back to that moment, back to that period of time, and she almost gets stuck there. But again, it doesn't play on it beyond this point right here. What? Why would you say that? Because we need Lord Perugius to understand that our child isn't Laplace. Sylphie hung her head. But if he is Laplace, what then? Huh? I already told you. Orsted said he isn't Laplace. But he could have made a mistake. Orsted wasn't perfect. He could have been blinded by Sieg's cuteness and claimed that it wasn't Laplace despite all signs being there. No, he wouldn't do that. If that happens, then I'll protect Sieg. Even if I have to bring the floating fortress crashing down and do it. Sylphie hung her head at that answer before lowering her voice to a murmur. Okay. They then set off to the floating fortress. Their group, Sylphie, Sieg, Edis, Orsted and Zenoba. I was like, the moment I seen Zenoba, I was like, wait, what? Oh, yeah, it technically makes sense. He likes Zenoba. Why would you not bring somebody else that he likes? Rudius brought Zenoba because he figured it wouldn't hurt to have more people Perugius couldn't ignore. It's his bestest friend, man. Zenoba's like his bestest friend. Greetings, come right in. Savaral's response to the party was the same as ever. Heartfelt respect for Zenoba, Edis, and Sylphie. The superficial respect for Rudius. The attitude of downright disgust at Orsted. Yep, same as ever. Rudius felt like she should learn to make her opinions of others a bit less obvious. He couldn't say it out loud, though. She'd probably snap at him and claim the Chaos Breaker wasn't in the business of customer service. Now then, this way. Lord Perugius waits. She guided them to the audience chamber. The entire way, Sylphie walked alongside Rudius as she clutched Sieg. Edis was on the other side of Rudius, her hand on her sword, ready to defend Sylphie at a moment's notice. Zenoba was behind them. He was told the circumstances and looked mildly anxious as a result. Orsted walked with Zenoba and wore a helmet to keep his face hidden. Very interesting that they wore the helmet. I wonder if that's because Rudius wanted him to wear it in case there was a chance that Perugius could be affected by his curse. Because they haven't been really clear on Orsted's curse and how it affects Perugius. It could really be sort of an idea that Perugius has so much confidence in himself and so much boldness that almost like his personality and his confidence overcomes it. But the curse still could affect his trust of who's in that room. So if Rudius is coming there with Sieg, this isn't Laplace, right? This isn't Laplace. Having Orsted there without something to suppress that curse could make him go, no matter what, no, it's Laplace. I can't trust you. That has to die. Causing everybody in that room to be uneasy when Rudius could be possibly bringing them Laplace is a bad mistake. Their party passed beneath the gate that Zenoba once breathlessly praised. Beads of white light emanated from Sylphie and Sieg. There was probably some coming out of Rudius as well. The only thing that he thought was strange was that no such beads rose from Orsted. Maybe he didn't have that Laplace factor thing. Yeah, I don't know why he would think that. This is one of those moments where it's like, why is Rudius pointing this out? It wouldn't make any sense why he would have Laplace aspect. He's not connected to Laplace in any way. But is he? Like, is Refugien pointing this out to nod at the idea of them maybe possibly being related somehow? I don't know. That's a really weird thing to point out. Why would that be important? Like, he's not pointing out that Zenoba doesn't have anything coming off him. He's specifically choosing to point out Orsted. Orsted doesn't have that thing. It's very weird. Savarl looked their way, but stayed silent. She swiftly led them inside, her lack of reaction being a sign. You see, Sylphie? It's going to be no big deal. Okay. No reaction was far from proof. Sylphie hardly reacted either. Savarl continued walking without looking back at them. They passed through some halls lined with luxurious decor until they came to a grand, tastefully designed door. Maybe seeing castles around the world changed the perspective, but Rudius was starting to understand why Zenoba had such glowing praise for this castle. Saying any out loud would probably come off as brown-nosing, though. Yeah, Savarl's not going to accept it. I don't know, she might. If you explain yourself very well, she might actually start liking you. I mean, Rudius already showed signs of this. When he was visiting the King Dragon Realm, he started kind of, out of nowhere, equating everybody to Perugius' castle. The idea that, like, oh, this audience chamber's nowhere near close to Perugius' castle. Like, he's starting to realize, based on seeing all these different locations, yeah, this place is actually really nice. And right here, he's kind of connected to the idea of Zenoba. This is what he meant. Zenoba knew that. I didn't. Savarl opened that grand door. Enter, if you please. Inside was unchanged from the last time Rudius came. Pillars as wide as tree trunks. Giant chandeliers. Curtains emblazoned with emblems of humanity and dragonfolk. 12 masked men and women at both sides of a red velvet carpet. Then there was a silver-haired dragon king on the throne. The aesthetics of the place might be described as grand, glorious, or even divine. No audience chamber across the world came close. Rudius suddenly realized there was an extra person there. Nanahoshi. What was she doing here? Maybe a side gig as one of the aides? I was talking about this a while back, but I'm kind of shocked that Nanahoshi has become such a background character. Because it felt for a while there that she was going to become something very, very significant to the story. I mean, she's there at the story's beginning. And she's there at one of the biggest pinnacle points of the story, which is fighting Orsted. And getting into the idea of the displacement incident. She's surrounding the displacement incident, which has been a core for the story all the way through. She's significant to the future Rudius. He says to go talk to Nanahoshi. Nanahoshi seems very important, but the story seems to keep putting her in the background. And I'm very curious if we're finally going to see her finally come to the forefront. I believe this entire time, the reason why she's in that room is probably because, yes, she probably overheard Perugius, or Perugius told her, because she knows that Rudius is important to Nanahoshi. He probably told her that something's going to come up here in a minute. It's probably going to get bad. Do you want to be there? And she's like, yes, I want to be there. I want to help him. I mean, it sort of implies later on that she probably even stopped Perugius from just the moment that child walks in the door, kill it. She probably told him to stay his hand. Probably told him, hey, try to figure out something. If it's Laplace, please try to figure out something besides killing it. Nanahoshi probably could have gone to bat for him. But I think Nanahoshi's been there this entire time. Yes, because he's intrigued by her. She's a hard worker. She's studying all this magic and everything. She's learning from him. But I think equally, I think that she's probably working with Perugius on all that crap that they brought up when Rudius was going to fight Orsted. When she looked at that book, that future diary, and started getting her theory on the future and being sent back and everything, I think she's been looking into that this entire time. And I think it's going to finally come to the forefront at some point. Rudius is going to finally meet with her again. She's going to go, okay, here's my theory. Like, I told you a little bit about here, but I've been studying on it, and I think this is it. And it's going to just completely open up that whole storyline.
Rudius, you arrived.
I have. It's been some time, Lord Perugius. Rudius bowed his head, while Sylphie, Edis, and Zenobia took a knee. Rudius would have took a knee too, but he learned recently that, as Orsted's subordinate, he shouldn't be so quick to kneel before others. Checking their reactions, Silvaro seemed a bit ticked off. Yeah, he's not climbing out of that hole. But Perugius didn't say anything about it. He couldn't contribute this to Perugius's mood, however, which was foul.
You certainly kept me waiting.
Well, my son had just been born.
I've heard as much from Armanfi, hence my willingness to wait. I wouldn't be so forgiving had your recent been more trifling than that.
He might have dismissed the birth of a child as trifling, but he wouldn't castigate Rudius over his choice. Truly a magnanimous monarch. Perugius kept anxiously tapping at his armrest.
I take it from the look on your face that you know why I called you here.
Yes, I do.
I take it from your party that you're prepared to fight, depending on how this conversation goes. Some commendable resolve.
Yes, I am. Perugius glared bitterly at Orsted. This is a right to Orsted. Orsted's face was blocked by the black helmet, but Rudius could guess that it was intimidating as ever. Good old reliable Orsted. I've brought my trump card. However, Lord Perugius, I believe it won't come to that.
Well now, it won't lead to a fight, you say? I see. So you have that much confidence in your position.
We don't have any reason to fight. Now then, Sylphie. Sylphie stood to show Perugius the baby she carried. Lay your eyes upon my fourth child.
Well, what of it?
Well, everything. Were you not the one that requested I bring my child between me and Sylphie, Lord Perugius? Perugius stopped moving. His irritated tapping of the armrest stopped too. I had Orsted look at him as well, and we can confirm this child is not Laplace. However, I presume that you wouldn't be satisfied unless you saw him with your own two eyes. I considered declining to show him to you, but to keep our relationship amicable, I decided best to allow it. Perugius remained silent. However, if Orsted is perhaps wrong, and this child is really Laplace...
Well, what then?
Then I'll fight. Perugius's eyebrow twitched.
Have you not been traveling the world for the sole purpose of defeating Laplace in battle 80 years from now?
I have.
Yet you would fight to defend that very same Laplace.
Rudius now realized how contradictory he was. He would protect his child, despite knowing he was Laplace. It would completely waste everything he had spent the past few years doing. And that was what I was mentioning the last Mushoku Monday. Is like, this completely flips the table. If this is Laplace, it changes everything. The whole thing about Laplace is that he has to be killed to get the key and then go to the man god. And that's the thing they're going after. Now, granted, technically, for Rudius, yes, it'd be nice to have the man god off his back. He could live his life peacefully. But currently for Rudius, in this current state, he's feeling comfortable and protected from the man god, even though the man god is sending people after him. He feels protected in a sense. Not fully. Not saying that all that anxiety is gone. He still fears it constantly. But the current goal is to build towards this battle that he's not even going to be present for. So just build people. Just build an army. That's it. That's all he's focusing on. It was really Geese appearing out of nowhere and saying that he's going to come kill Perugius. That's where it sparked things up again. But it was almost like he was feeling comfortable for a while there. And so yes, there's your ticket. You could make this all go away. Why would you not do it? It's a good question. And again, I think from Perugius' perspective, he doesn't understand it. It doesn't make any sense. Why for a child? Just kill the child. Who cares? If my child grows up, and if he truly does bring about war against all of humanity, then I'll respond the way we've been preparing all this time.
You wouldn't consider nipping the problem in the bud?
I would not. If his son were Laplace, a terrifying thought. He avoided thinking too deeply about it. In 80 years, Laplace would start a war. In response, he was negotiating with countries around the world to help ease Orsted's burden. If Laplace were to appear right this moment, he'd probably fight in the war himself. Stopping to think, though, if a war never broke out, what then? If Laplace were to gain his senses and swear off war, what then? If Laplace had just been born, there would be time to make him see reason. His schooling could make a difference. If they taught Laplace about everything that had happened and everything that would come to pass, he might even become Orsted's ally. No, Orsted was clear. Laplace had to be killed. He must obtain the treasure of the dragonfolk, which meant that the day would come where Orsted took his child's life. There'd be no other conclusion. Bruce had to calm himself down. If he took each thought one step at a time, he could find the path he wanted to take. My family will always come first in my priorities. Again, right there, it's bringing up that important question. If it does come to that, is there really any other conclusion? It's going to end up coming to this. Yeah, make nice. If he turns out to be Laplace, we'll just raise him to not want to do that. Maybe we can teach him. Maybe we can show him the errors of his way. Show him the past and how that turned out and how it shouldn't turn out that way again. That no matter what, he's going to lose. Just drill it into his head that he can't do that. And yes, show him the beauty of the humans. Show him that he doesn't want to kill them. Show him how great they are. All that kind of stuff. But in the end, no matter what, if the idea is that they have to die to open that door, Orsted's going to kill him. Plain and simple. Again, unless, like I was talking about, find a different way to open that door. And if he turns out to be Laplace, I think it's going to turn out to be that way. I think it's going to turn into a thing where he's going to have to find an alternate way to get to there. My family will always come first in my priorities. I became a subordinate of Orsted's because there were forces at work to harm them. If Orsted were planning to harm my family, then he'd have to do it over my dead body.
Even if the cause were your own son?
My plan is to thoroughly teach him the difference between right and wrong. My children may be young, but while they're still children, that is, until they turn 15, I will protect them. If they were to turn away from my advice after that, then I'd own up to my responsibility and deal with them.
Well now, deal with them, you say. Might I ask how?
Teach them again, as best I can. Again, interesting. I'm going to teach them properly until they become 15 adults. Then after that, I'll own up to it. I'll handle it. I'll teach them again. It's not like they're adults, so I have to kill them. No, it's just, I'll teach them again, I guess. Reese would do the best he could. For what he couldn't, well, being a child would be no excuse.
So, you won't say you'd kill him?
Everyone makes mistakes, so I'd like to give my children a second chance. Something I didn't have. So once again, going back to that old life, something I didn't have. Something I made mistakes. Understanding that even as an adult, even as his own self as an adult, he still made mistakes. Still made massive, massive mistakes. It's not a lost cause. That's what Refugian's been basically. This entire story has been second chances. This whole story is second chances. It's Rudius' second chance. And he's going to still make mistakes, but second chances. Third chances. Fourth chances. Never give up on somebody, no matter how many mistakes they make. You can get into a sense of somebody having patterns, that they're never going to fix it. But that's really where a lot of people have been lost in society, is that idea that they make a massive mistake, they go to jail or whatever, they clean themselves up, they get back on their feet, they have that second chance, and then they fall back into it, and people stop. It's like they make that second mistake, and then suddenly people say they're a lost cause. They're tainted. They're no help. There's no help in them. They're done. Just forget them. I trusted that they were going to clean up their act, and then they made another mistake. That's where so many people get lost. They get lost in that third strike. It's really sad. And it's funny right here. It's like Perugius is like, wait, I was expecting you're going to kill them. You're going to raise them until they become adults. They're going to set on their own, and then what? What if they still? I'll teach them again. No, that wasn't the answer that Perugius is looking for. He's like, no, that's supposed to be death. You're supposed to kill them. They're still making it. That was the most Bruce could say. He didn't want to put anything beyond that into words. He didn't want to think about the future in which Lucy, Lara, and Otis made enemies of Orsted and were ruthlessly killed. But however lofty his reason might be, there was times that wouldn't be enough. Children rarely grow the way their parents plan. Bruce's own life barely went the way that he planned it. They might have been his children, but he couldn't expect them to live up to every hope that he had for them. They were their own people. That's why he wanted to give them a chance, if nothing else. A compromise.
I have no children. As such, I fail to understand these ideas of yours. Ideas of allowing the seed of misfortune to grow only to weed it out yourself.
Perugius laughed at his observation.
But you are foolish enough, man, to pick a fight with death for the sake of protecting your wives. Of course I wouldn't understand. I can't understand, but I can tell how strong your conviction is.
Perugius descended from his throne and slowly walked towards them. He soon stood right in front of Rudius, his height demanding that Rudius tilt his head upward.
In light of this, I shall grant you a chance and a trial.
What do you mean?
Take your baby and travel to the shrine upon Elus Hill, so that he may be baptized.
Elus Hill? Rudius had never heard of it. Looking around, almost everyone was tilting their heads in befuddlement. Orsted wasn't, but his expression was blocked. Not that this was news to him, of course.
Will that do, Nanahoshi?
Rudius was still processing the demand, but now curious why Nanahoshi's name came up. Rudius looked towards her. I still haven't wrapped my head around all this, but I owe Rudius a lot, so I'll be fine. Nanahoshi sighed as she responded, like she was kind of let down. Maybe she had some other business here. She would need a good reason to stand amongst the familiars. Internally, Rudius apologized to her. Family came first. Yeah, right there. It kind of pointed that idea that, yeah, she's probably there to stop Perugius. Like, she probably heard and probably pleaded to him, please, don't do this. Now, if Perugius really truly believed on that spot, right there, standing in front of Perugius, if he 100% believed that that was Laplace, I think he'd want him dead. I think he would... Familiars, go. Let's do this. Let's do this right now. He's not going to stop. No matter if Nanahoshi in the previous room said, please don't do this. Don't do it. So it does indicate to me a little bit here that there's two things here happening. One, that I believe that he doesn't fully believe that it's Laplace. And again, do they even have some way of knowing? I think if Nanahoshi wasn't there, he might kill him just to play it safe. Kill the child. If Rudius didn't know Perugius, if Nanahoshi wasn't there, if this was the old Perugius, because I think he's changed a lot. Just like Orsted, I think they've changed a lot, these two. And it's through the actions of Rudius and Nanahoshi that they have changed a lot. I think if they weren't present, I think he would have killed the child just to be safe. You have two people walking through that gate that have Laplace aspects. And then they have a child in their hand that has a Laplace aspect. And they have green hair. No questions. Dead. I bet he would just send Aramaphi down there, kill the baby in there. Aramaphi shows up, kills it. The only reason they had an audience is because Perugius respects him. And that Nanahoshi probably pleaded to him to not harm the child. So there's a semblance here that I think that Perugius himself doesn't even know. I don't think he would be able to know. So the question is what's this trial? What is this trial? Is it simply to test Rudius? To see his resolve? To see how a parent works? I don't have children. I don't know why you would protect your wives. I don't understand it. Is it to see Rudius' resolve? To see him do something that seems like it might be dangerous? Or is this baptism a way of blocking the Laplace's aspect? Is this some sort of ancient thing that possibly stops these aspects? A way of shielding it or way of protecting it from, again, like I mentioned before, this idea that these aspects will gather into him and make him into Laplace. Maybe he sees a sign there's a possibility he can be a vessel for Laplace. Again, like I was saying before, what's the chances that they're not, when they're born, they're Laplace? He turns immediately and goes, whoa, here we are. It's time. But that a baby is born, and then over time, that self comes in there. The vessel's there, he enters it. And maybe this could possibly be a way of preventing that. Maybe this is some ancient place or something like that where they figured out a ritual of sealing a body to prevent a soul from coming into it. So there's a good chance that he's going out of his way to do a favor for Nanahoshi and not just kill it on the spot. There's a vessel. That vessel can possibly have Laplace in it, but Nanahoshi doesn't want me to harm Rudius and his children. So I'll give him an alternate way. I'll give him an out. This might work. There's this old baptism that might help. I'll let him do that and see if he can protect that child. I wonder. Lord Perugius, where is Elus Hill?
Look for it yourself. I like to say that, but I shall tell you. Look for it yourself is what I wanted to say, but I'll show you. It's hardly worth keeping a secret when Orsted surely knows.
Ah, right. My apologies, but I appreciate the effort. In a clear, booming voice, he uttered the name of the one continent Rudius has yet to set foot on. Finally! We're finally going to that last place way up there. Finally! We've been to everywhere but that one last place.
The Divine Continent.
Chapter 2. Path to the Divine Continent. We're getting the wives together. We're going on an adventure with the wives. So great. Even though one of them is depressed the entire time. It's like, yay, we have all the wives are together. We're going on an adventure, but Sylphie's depressed the whole time. And we get a sign that Sylphie has been unfaithful. We get a sign that Sylphie has been unfaithful. I'm just joking. The Divine Continent. If you were to mark it on a map, it would be the northernmost edge, connecting the central continent to the Demon Continent. While it was called a continent, its land was adjoined to the central continent. You can even walk from it to the Demon Continent during low tides. Yeah, that's an interesting thing to note there, because it's in the map, it's always kind of portrayed as being its own continent, that you would have to take a ship there. But it makes sense. Again, the whole continent used to be one continent. And at some point, this massive attack blew this massive crater in it, and then all this water flooded in. So it makes sense. Why would a landmass be treated separate? Its height. The continent perched atop a steep, vertical precipice, about 3,000 meters above sea level. 3,000 meters. For all the Westerners, that's like 1.8 miles. It's way up there. It's way up there. People didn't travel through as a rule. It wasn't impossible for those determined enough, but there was no roads worth mentioning. Given the winged monsters teeming within the walls of the cliff, any attempts to scaling it would be incredibly difficult. Rudius heard stories of wanted fugitives escaping the central continent to the Demon Continent through the Divine Continent, but no stories of them surviving. Yeah, I remember when Rudius was first plotting their course to get back to the central continent with Brazerd and Edis. He was mentioning the idea of possibly going through the Divine Continent. It would have been quicker because they were way up here in Ricardissu. So it's like, oh yeah, we'll just go straight west, go across the Divine Continent. But it's like, yeah, if you could survive that, that's the problem. You'd think that being able to fly would make it easy. But in this world, the sky belonged to the dragons. Forget planes. This world's technology didn't even have hot air balloons. That's kind of a surprise. I would assume that they would at least have that, just not using it. And that's probably because they're not innovating that way because of the threats in the air. It was the height of recklessness for someone to go into the air unprotected. And that was the place Perugius wanted him to bring his month-old baby. It was absurd. Back at the company's countryside office, Zenobia had returned home. Roxy and Sylphie were in the other room with Sieg. Rudius stood before Orsted with Edis behind him. I would appreciate it if you could inform me of where I could find a teleportation circle linked to the Divine Continent. Orsted's expression was fearsome as ever, but behind that fearsome face, he seemed to be considering how to tell him the hard truth. Maybe there wasn't a teleportation circle connected to the Divine Continent?
Perugius wouldn't be satisfied if you used a teleportation circle.
Oh, that makes sense. That must be a dragon folk thing, or just possibly having a sense of who Perugius is over so many loops. He knows how he works. Maybe he possibly knew of a loop where he gave somebody a trial like that and just knows how he ticks. That would be cheating. He wouldn't like that. He wants you to have a trial. Teleport there, walk up there, dip it in the water. No, that's not what he wants here. He wants you to travel there. Come to think of it, Perugius called it a trial. Perhaps giving Sieg a baptism at a loose hill wasn't the only part of the trial. The perilous path towards reaching it might be important. If that meant going from here to the Divine Continent on foot, that would be wasting a lot of time. Does that rule out teleporting somewhere near the Divine Continent?
It shouldn't be a problem if you're still outside of it.
On foot to the Divine Continent, rock climbing, baptism by the people at the top, a 3-course meal of tribulations. Forget the difficult trek by itself. This is a 1-month-old baby they were traveling with. He could get sick at any point along the way. At 3,000 feet... At 3,000 feet? No way. Oh my gosh, dude. Damn it, 7 Seas. At 3,000 feet above sea level. So is it 3,000 meters or is it 3,000 feet above sea level? That's a big difference. That is a massive difference. What is the difference there? That's half a mile versus almost 2 miles. That's a quarter of the distance there. 7 Seas, make up your mind. Is it 3,000 feet or meters? There ain't no way with how long it took for them to get up there that it's feet. This is meters. This is above clouds. This is way up there. Damn it, 7 Seas. 3,000 meters above sea level, altitude sickness could be a real possibility. It would be rough, but that's what made it a trial. Yep, pretty much. Maybe bringing down the floating fortress wasn't a bad idea. This is the first time he brought it up, and he almost says it. It's almost like he says it like he's been thinking about it for a while now, which, honestly, I wouldn't be surprised that he didn't think about it initially when our Muffy came. If he thinks it's, we might just blast it down. Orsted, do you think that I can complete this trial? With a 1-month-old baby, that is.
Sure.
Your reasoning?
Sieg heart, was it? That baby's physique. show strong influence from the Laplace factor. Children like that have a resistance to typical illnesses and environmental stresses.
Oh, I see.
It's an effect they wove into the reincarnation magic. It makes sure that Laplace's future body would survive the harshest conditions. If a child has a strong factor, they could survive the trip to the divine continent.
Very interesting. Because again, when they first revealed the whole thing about Rudius and the fact that the body that he went into was a stillborn, in all the other loops, he was a stillborn. And it was Rudius kind of entering that body that kind of allowed him to be able to be born. So it kind of makes you wonder, with that aspect there, why would the original child die? Because they implied it was because of that maniple that he died. Kind of makes you wonder if it was that's sort of a sign there, really. The reason why the child dies, it seems like this whole influence from the Laplace factor didn't give it some sort of strength, and it just died from it instead. Interesting. Orsted seemed confident, so Sieg would be fine. As long as Rudius didn't space out and let a rock swipe Sieg off his back, Edis and Roxy should be going with him, so he can make up for any lapse of attention. I feel a bit guilty about asking for so much, especially right after what happened with Geese.
I understand.
I appreciate the generosity.
I still remember how you wiped a forest off the face of the continent to protect your family. I wouldn't put it past you to bring Chaos Breaker crashing down before Laplace's revival. That's an asset, and I will need it.
It is so weird. It is so weird. It's such a weird thought process. I seen what you did, Rudius. You made a massive crater. I wouldn't doubt that you'd bring down that entire Chaos Breaker to save your child. And that's an asset I need. But I will let you know that I'm going to have to kill your child. I'm still going to have to kill your child. I thank you for taking him out, but I need to take him out. It's such a conflict of interest. It's literally like 3 different enemies of themselves that are all buddies. Like these 3 factions that will eventually have to kill each other, but they're all kind of just at this. It's literally like our world, really. It's like everybody is just kind of keeping peace because they know they can nuke each other, and they know eventually they're going to nuke each other, just not win. The win's the question mark there. It figured. To Orsted, both Perugius and Rudius were combat assets. He didn't want his pieces taking out one another. At least this is finally a confirmation that he's allowing Perugius to live for a reason. Because that was a question mark I had. Why has he not killed Perugius yet? If he needs him for that key, why not? Why not yet? I think it's probably because he just knows he's going to need him. Not now. Not yet. And yes, possibly in the idea that Perugius needs to do things before then. He still has his uses. He still, in each of the loops, does something at some point. I'm relieved to see you being so accommodating. We'll get to preparing right away.
Sure.
With goals made clear, Reese looked back to Edis, her arms crossed like usual. Is that all right with you, Edis? Makes no difference to me. She shot a look at Rudius. He hadn't seen much lately. A piercing glare. You made a mistake. And Edis is calling it out. Edis of all people is calling it out. Don't you think you should discuss this with Sylphie? Rudius couldn't help but smirk. It wasn't something he expected to hear from her. He nodded. Understood. He's getting scolded by Edis. It's great. Another Sylphie perspective. Sylphie fans are getting spoiled. Sylphie was at a loss. She didn't know who to ask what to do or how. She didn't even know what she wanted to come of it. It was painful to be so clueless. When Rudy told her that he'd show Sieg to Perugius, she thought just for a moment about how much easier it would be if Perugius would simply take Sieg away. That thought shook her to the core. Again, fleeting thought. It even says it afterwards. It was just a fleeting thought. But it confirmed something. The root of her anxieties wasn't the idea of Sieg being Laplace. I agree. She's never really thought about it. Again, just a chapter ago, yes, she did bring up the idea, the aspects and everything, but that was never in there. It was barely a blip in all that. But that begged the question, what was it that she feared? Why was she uneasy? She didn't know. All she could do was hold Sieg to her arms and shudder. That's crazy. Again, fleeting thought. We always do this. And this is one of those things that I really love doing, is kind of reminding people sometimes when they get mad at characters for having unpleasant thoughts, for thinking of something that just seems so wrong. Like, how could you think of that? How would you ever do that? Everybody does it all the time. Everybody does it all the time. They just don't want to admit it. People have bad thoughts all the time. They just don't act on it. They don't confirm it. They don't agree with it a lot of times. A fleeting thought is a fleeting thought. Right here, it's crazy to consider, but I agree with her. There would be a thought that she could have right here before Perugius, if only he just took him away. It makes me kind of wonder if the thought process there is that would that make all these question marks finally leave? Again, not to say that this is what she wants. I'm just saying theorize here. If for the last month she has been stressing over that child's... Before then, too. When she was pregnant, she was stressing about this. She had all this anxiety coming up to the birth. That this child would be harmed. These shadows would come to take it. Does Rudy just love the child? All these things are popping in her head. The child is born. Oh no, it has green hair. They're going to be bullied just like me. What if they're Laplace? And then all of a sudden we have to go see him. And she's still protecting him. Still holding on that child. Nobody have it. But there's a thought there that a lot of these anxieties might go away if he just takes it away. But she doesn't want that, obviously. But it's still there. It could be partially the idea of it answers all the questions. There's no longer a question anymore. I no longer have to stress over the what ifs. It's confirmed. It's happened. But additionally, I don't have to worry about whether Rudius would protect him or not. I don't have to worry about this or that. There's no more questioning, I think, is a lot of the case. But that begged the question, what was it that she feared? Why was she uneasy? She didn't know. All she could do was hold Sieg in her arms and shudder. Even when they were told to go to the Divine Continent and give him a baptism, her mind was blank. It really was like she reverted to her old self. To the little girl who was bullied by all those kids in Buena Village. Rudy saved her back then, chasing off the bullies and teaching her all that there was to know. Things like magic, how to read, write. But what about now? Would Rudy still save her? I think that's us on the thing there. If we're going back to what I was saying earlier, of the idea when she responded to Rudy, she sounded like she had reverted to her old self. She sounded like a child. Was this the face that she gave to those bullies? Specifically when she was saying, no, I don't want to go. I don't want to take Sieg to see Perugius. She had that face that Rudy said he's never seen before, and it's probably the face that she gave the bullies. This child. And what would a child think in this situation? Rudy, handle it. Perugius, handle it. Somebody else handle it. Take this burden from me. I can't handle it. I'm a child. I can't take this responsibility. It could be a possibility of her kind of reverting to a child. Who would save her? Would Rudy still save her? Is he going to handle the situation? When she was a foolish little child, she had complete faith in Rudy and knew he'd save her. Things were different now. She loved Rudy and had faith in him, but she knew that he was still only human. He might have looked infallible, like he could do anything. But the truth, there was plenty of things that were beyond him. He was scared of all kinds of things and was more than capable of making simple mistakes, like forgetting to come up with a name for their babies. She's never going to let that one go. You're never going to let that one go. This is gonna be one of those things where if she ever needs to jab at Rudius, you forgot the child's name. You forgot the child's name. You forgot the child's name. Honey, that was 80 years ago. Could you let it go? They're in a retirement home. Honey, stop. It was one name. That surprised her and even disappointed her, but it wasn't like she got angry over it. Rudy was hard at work as Orsted's subordinate. She knew how busy every single day was for him. She knew that he faced hardships in the Ostrad Kingdom, Milis, and the Demon Continent. Everywhere he went, people had their limits. She wanted to be considerate of that. She couldn't expect someone to be a perfect family man while working under Orsted. That's why she swore to herself that she'd do it, so that Rudy could be free to pursue his work. She couldn't beg Rudy for help. She had to make ends meet on her own. Rudy wouldn't come to save her. So what was she supposed to do? How was she supposed to make it all work? Interesting. This is sort of a sign right here, and I might be reading this wrong. This is almost a sign right here where in the current moment, she doesn't feel like Rudius can handle this. We've been getting a lot of Rudius' perspective right here. What happened? He comes home for a brief moment, just coming by. We're about to go to the Sword Sanctum. All right, who am I going to bring to Sword Sanctum? Oh, let's have a little fun right now with Lucy. We're playing house, and oh man, Aisha's becoming like a dog in heat. Ha ha ha. Sylphie drags him off to the side. What's the baby's name? It's coming soon. You might be leaving here soon. Oh crap, I forgot. Oh man, she's gonna be so mad. Crap, gotta think of a name. I need to take care of her, make her feel happy. Gotta think of a name. Okay, baby comes out. Crap, Armanfi shows up. Crap, is this is my child Laplace? Crap, Perugius is gonna want to see him. Orsted, good. All right, let's go see Perugius. Perugius, hey man, not gonna happen. Protecting this child. I'll do whatever I can. I'm gonna teach the child right. What do we do? Oh, we got baptism. All right, cool. He's already switching to protect child mode. Sylphie's perspective. Baby's coming. Now I'm having these dreams about myself. I'm being bullied. Shadows are coming after me. I had another dream. Now it's a child with Rudius' face. Again, could this be my child? This boy is being harmed. There's no Rudy to protect him. Rudy's not here. Crap. Does Rudy love this child? No, of course he does. Rudy obviously loves. Now we're shifting into this mindset of Rudy is busy. He's helping Orsted. He's planning for Laplace. He's going to take down this Laplace in order to help Orsted. Everything is about Orsted. I have to handle this. He's busy. I have to handle this. I need to handle this. He can't be here to protect me this time. I chose this. Back here after Ariel, I chose to be the one that protects the family, supplies for the family, feeds the family, teaches the children. I chose to handle this part for him because I knew he was busy. And it's fine that he's doing this. He's protecting us. And I chose to handle this. He can't come to save me this time. What am I supposed to do? Again, Rudy's perspective, he's trying to handle the situation. But from Sylphie's perspective, it's almost like she doesn't think Rudy's is going to be here for it. He's obviously going to choose to help Orsted. He has too much on his plate. It almost, again, I could be reading this wrong, but it almost feels like it's been burned into her head that Rudius is super busy. And I have to handle the family, but I don't know what to do. Rudy can't save me. What am I supposed to do? I'm alone. That's like walking up there to Perugius. She's holding on to Sig like nobody else. It's almost like she's completely blocking Rudius from the mind. I have to handle this. He's dragging me up here, but I have to handle this. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? He's not going to save me. That was why she swore to herself that she'd do it. He's not going to be the perfect family man. I need to do it. He needs to pursue his work. I can't beg him for help. I have to make it on my own. He can't save me. What am I supposed to do? How am I supposed to make it all work? Very interesting. Even though he's right there, she's trying to figure out how to make it work. Very interesting. It's really a thing of Sylphie before couldn't handle the situation with the bullies by herself. And Rudius had to save her. Now, she's in a position where she has to handle it herself. Rudius is not there to save her, and she can't do it. It's really what it is. Sylphie, while her head spun, Sylphie was snapped back to reality. Sorry, if I've got the wrong idea. Roxy spoke with both hesitation and sincerity. But, Sylphie, do you think that maybe you're less concerned about whether Sig is Laplace and more worried about his hair being green? Sylphie assumed that her eyes had widened the moment they met Roxy's eyes. What makes you say that? I heard from Lilia that you used to be bullied by the other children for having green hair. Sylphie had forgotten that Lilia knew. A long time had passed since her hair changed colors. She reunited with Rudy, married him, and assumed at some point he was the only one that still knew about her old self. Sylphie never gave it much thought, but there was no way that she wouldn't have known. She wondered why she never connected with Lilia. No, Lilia did start conversation with her. She had just closed herself off and never tried to ask her. Very interesting there. I mean, the way this is worded, it almost makes it imply the idea that she's never connected with Lilia outside of her being a maid of the house and taking care of the family. But I mean, we've seen scenes where, yes, they have the family meetings and Lilia's in the room. Now, yes, she's there with Zenith, but it implies that she was there too. She was taking part in it. I mean, she was getting tipsy and she was talking and everything. So she was joining in the festivities. So I'm thinking this is more meaning the idea of why she never connected with Lilia about her past. I think this is specifically about the past. But again, I do admit that when I first read this, it almost made me feel like, wait, so is she like not connecting with Lilia, like treating her like a maid, like keeping it professional basically? But I think it's just strictly her past. But it could be though. It could be. I mean, we barely ever get to see any scenes where it's just, we don't get to see any scenes really with it just Sylphie and Lilia. I'm really curious if there is a divide between their relationship and possibly in the future we can see them connect. You probably don't remember, Sylphie, but back when I was in Blaina Village, I met you once. I even spoke to your parents. About what? About the color of your hair. It seemed they worried about it too. This is a strange thing for Sylphie to hear. For as long as she remembered, her mother and father never said a word about her hair color. Even when she was bullied and ran home crying and asked her why her hair was so different than the others, they couldn't give her a straight answer. They just looked sad or guilty or some mix of emotions. And then they would hug her and told her it would be all right. But it wasn't all right at all. What did you tell them? That I could guarantee you weren't a Superd. I told them that everything would be all right if they explained it to their neighbors. And raised you with love. So that was why. Her mother and father hugged her and told her it was all right. Over and over again. Of course, they weren't all talk. Sylphie knew that her mother and father really did love her. They raised her as best as they could. She might not have known it then, but she knew it now. That's one of those unfortunate things, and it does come with time. when you grow up, you don't realize just how much your parents loved you. I had that moment in my life as well. I'm sure everybody has that moment when their parents were trying so hard for them, but when they were a child, they just kind of pushed them away or whatever. And then you realize at some point, God, they went through so much for me. I was such a snot kid. Gosh dang it, how they stand me. Why did they not kick me out on the street? All that kind of crap. That is sweet. But no, really super sweet. The idea that Roxy essentially, it makes sense. Again, this is a village that by all signs, besides obviously Laws and Sylphie's mother, there's obviously different races there, but specifically demon folk. That's the question mark there. And so yes, people are going to be discriminating. And again, the whole story about the Superds. If she has green hair, people are going to be weirded out by it. Green hair in Buena Village seems like it's a, what? Why the hell does she have green hair? Her parents don't have green hair. What is this? It's got to be a demon. And yes, that discrimination there against the Superds, they're going to fear it. And so yes, obviously the parents are going to see this. No child wants to see that their children are being bullied. And they're afraid. They don't know what's going to happen here. So obviously when Roxy shows up, and yes, her hair under a certain light looks green, they're possibly going to ask her. She was going out into the village on a regular basis and helping them. That was like a thing they pointed out at some point. She was regularly going out to the village, and she was helping with the crops and whatnot. And so yes, she probably came across them, and they asked her, hey, what's going on with our child? You know, is there something wrong here? What do you think about the hair? Is this a sign of this? She probably would have informed them of it. So it's super sweet, the idea of it. You know, just gonna be all right. Inform your neighbors. She's not a Superd. Give them love. Raise her with love. Yeah, they always hugged me. Said they love me. Again, acknowledging the idea they were going to say that. They did love me. It's not like Roxy telling them, hey, tell them you love them. And then take, oh, okay, I guess we've never said I love you before, so let's finally say I love you. But it's still sweet. It's still super sweet to see that influence there. But it opens that door. Roxy told her parents she's not a Superd. Raise them with love. Everything will be all right. Sylphie, your child's not Laplace. Raise them with love. Inform your neighbors. Everything will be all right. Parallels. We've drawn parallels. It's that simple. Just explain to people. Raise them with love. And that goes back to the previous discussions. The idea that if she has green hair, and that's the only problem here, we're taking the Laplace out of the picture. If it's just green hair, there's going to be discrimination. There's going to be issues. Just raise them with love. Take care of them. Protect them. And everything's going to be okay. You're not going to be able to protect them from everything. You can't keep them from everything. There's going to be something that will come to harm them. You just got to be there for them. I thought you'd be all right, since Buena Village didn't have a culture of discrimination against demons. That attitude doesn't always reach the children. Roxy paused to pat Sylphie's chest. Either way, if you have any concern about Sig being treated differently because of his hair color, just leave it to me. As you can see from looking at me, I'm very clearly a demon. I've got plenty of experience in handling discrimination. Hearing this from Roxy made her seem more reliable than ever. Rudy must have had a lot of respect for that side of her. Still, Sylphie realized she was right. She wasn't alone anymore. She had Lilia and Roxy. Raising children might not have been Edis' specialty, but she gave it her all without giving up or pushing it on someone else. Exactly. You're not alone. Earlier she's saying, Rudy's not going to be able to save me. Rudy won't save me. Here she's acknowledging, I got all these girls. I got all the best waifus right here. They can all help me out. And let's not mistake, Sylphie, you nurtured this. That was the whole idea of like this, the meeting of the wives, bringing them all together, accepting them all in. And this is one of those kind of counters to a lot of people. Like, I mean, it obviously came up here recently with the anime adaptation of Roxy being brought into the family. This idea of, oh my gosh, you went harem. Oh my gosh, why would Sylphie accept this? All this kind of stuff. Everybody's mad at the idea of Sylphie accepting somebody else in the family. The idea of bringing Roxy into this family. The idea of her being okay with Rudius having slept with Roxy. The idea of Rudius coming up there and saying, I want to marry this girl. Can I have her? Can I keep her? Hey, Sylphie, can I keep her? She's kind of cute. Can I keep her? And Sylphie's like, oh my gosh, she's a cute little dog. Let's keep her. Everybody upset about that whole situation. The big thing they're upset about is the idea of Sylphie ever accepting the idea of not being his only one. But again, the argument is Sylphie has always been that way. She's always had that door open. Bring them to me. Let me see them. If they're truly in love with you, I'll accept it. I'll okay it. It's all good. And what sort of follows that is the idea of Sylphie creating this home that will be together, a home that will be structured, a home that will have all of its crap together so that when Rudius comes home from fighting against a man god, he'll be happy. He'll be comfortable. He'll have no stress here. He won't have to worry about what's happening behind the walls of his house, what's happening in there. That's why they have the meetings. Sylphie was gathering everybody together. It seemed like Roxy for a while there was heading it. It's like Roxy comes in there and is like, structure's kind of a little bit messed up. Let me go ahead and handle the leading. But this is Sylphie's idea, by the way, everybody. She created this idea of the women getting together and making sure they got their crap together. When Edis first showed up, she got invited in there. Come in the room. Sit down. We do this thing. Sylphie, in the beginning segments of this chapter, it's Sylphie being afraid because she can't expect that Rudius will save her right now. I have to handle this. The whole being the wife and the mom at home and raising the children, all this kind of stuff, that was Sylphie's idea, and thus I can't rely on Rudius. I chose to handle this. But she's forgetting one major thing. She nurtured and created a ecosystem in that home. One of the things that she put together was the structure of the wives. The structure of we work together to handle the stuff that Rudius isn't. At the beginning of this chapter, she's forgetting that. She's trying to take it upon herself. But right here, she's being reminded by Roxy, speaking up right now. That's right. I have Roxy. I have Edis. I have Lilia. I have all of them. They're here too. They can help me. I created an ecosystem. She basically created a company within her household. We together can handle this. Roxy's reliable. I forgot about that. That's why Rudy respects her. That's right. I had Lilia. That's right. Edis is a little rough around the edges, but she gave it her all. She never pushed on somebody else. So cool. So cool. I love it. Let's all travel to the Divine Continent together. I'm a bit concerned about leaving Lilia alone to watch the house, but there are plenty of people she can rely on. After making her suggestion, Roxy gently rubbed Sylphie's back. Sylphie felt lighter, as if Roxy was lifting a weight off her shoulders. I love it. I love it. I love it. It's such a good chapter. These first two chapters are so freaking good already. I'm just like, holy crap, this recording's already so freaking long and I'm not even done with this. My gosh. We still got like 2 more segments of this chapter. I might do a chapter and a half. Now we can do it. Back to Rudius. After leaving Orsted, Rudius found Sylphie's attitude had changed a bit. She was no more talkative than before, but the light had returned to her eyes. Roxy looked more determined than usual, so he wondered if she gave Sylphie a pep talk. Man, Roxy was reliable. Damn straight. Rudius talked to Sylphie, told her Orsted said Sieg's health was probably strong enough for the trip. He'd also told her that he'd do everything in his power to protect him, as well as apologize for forgetting the name. She's gonna bring it back no matter what, dude. You ain't apologizing out of that. Her response to that was tepid, so it didn't seem like she'd forgive him yet. He considered telling her that she could rest instead of coming along for the trip, but decided against it. It'd be a huge shock if he suggested separating mother and child. They'd go on this trip together. She wasn't fully recovered, but he knew it was better this way. Roxy and Sylphie would be traveling the Divine Continent for sure. He figured Edis was given as well. That left the house with just Aisha, Lilia, Zenith, and the children. Aris and Nada were still small, but they were already a handful. Unloading his anxieties about it when they got home, Lilia gave a heartening, "We'll be fine." Aisha was more practical. "We'll borrow some hands from mercenary band if we need to, so don't worry about it." It sounded like they could all make it work. So for now, Rudius was relaxed. Yeah, I don't see them having a problem with that. And it makes perfect sense. There ain't no way that Sylphie's gonna stay behind. This girl's got that death grip around Sieg right now. She's got this memory of this child being just attacked by this darkness. She's not letting that kid go. That kid's gonna be like 5 years old and she's gonna be carrying it on her side of her. She's gonna be like one of those kids. Gonna be super spoiled. Gonna take forever before he's winged. They prepared for 3 days. First day, they confirmed their route and schedule with Orsted. Learned about the particulars of the Divine Continent, put in orders for equipment, and a few other things. Their plan was to teleport to an ancient circle from the office, then soar from the ancient circle on foot to the Divine Continent, and then scale the cliff face. Once cleared, travel around half to a full day to Alus. Alus was a name of a skyfolk town, with the hill being nearby. After staying the night, they would climb the hill and have Sieg baptized. After that, all they had to do was set up a teleportation circle and head home. Again, right there is kind of, I guess, finally confirming to me that, yes, Rudius can make teleportation circles. So we're finally confirming that. I mean, they technically during the whole mill stuff kind of insinuated it. Like, yeah, he had to set up something. But again, I kind of wondered if it was just kind of just placing it there, setting up a location, putting it down like a piece of paper, roll it, put some candles on top of it. But yeah, it seems like he's kind of implying the idea that he can make them now. But no, but again, it could still just be roll out a scroll or something. At minimum, it would take 3 to 4 days. With some leeway, it'd be around 6. Since they'd be climbing to high altitude, they needed safety gear. The human body wasn't well adapted to survive in low oxygen areas. After Rurius brought up with Orsted, he provided a solution immediately. He handed Rurius a few necklace-shaped magical implements. Apparently, they nullified the harmful effects of thin air. They were originally invented by a race to traverse the miasma-filled valleys of the demon continent, so their primary effect was to nullify bodily harm that came from highly toxic areas. It seemed like they would work for the climb as well. Orsted really could pull anything out of his pockets. He might secretly be a robot cat from the 22nd century. Stupid. Got a Doraemon reference out of nowhere. Nah, Orsted's face was too scary for kids merch. No, we gotta have a Doraemon with Orsted's face just kind of stretched onto it. 2 days before departure, Lucy became depressed. When asked why, she said all of her moms were going away and that she felt lonely. She hadn't been getting much attention lately, given Sylphie's emotional state, so it was only natural. Reese felt guilty over making a child pay the price for the parents' problems, but parents were human too. They got depressed sometimes. Yep, and it's tough for a kid. My experience with parents when they had issues like that, it affects you a lot. You want to do something because it kind of feels like your structure of your life gets kind of broken. He spent as much time as he could with Lucy that day. She talked about how dealing with the newly born Sieg was a bit tough. He couldn't tell her to be a big sister and suck it up at her age, and he certainly didn't want to. But he explained that the other kids would have tough times on their own. He hoped that he could count on Lucy's help when those times came. He also told her that if she ever needed help, her dear old dad would do everything he could to provide it. She pouted at first, but she looked fully invested at the end. He wanted to think that he reached her. That evening, he caught Lucy tending to Sieg from the side of his crib. Considering how often she stared blankly at him early on, this took Rudius by surprise. He figured Lucy must wish Sieg wasn't here. And yet, she fetched Lilia and Aisha whenever Sieg started crying, and if Lada and Otters got cranky, she dashed to comfort them. She'd taken his words to heart. She'd come into big sis. They already implied it before that she'd been like a big sis character, but yeah, definitely becoming a big sis now. When Maurice was her age, in his previous life, he could never have acted that way. He probably made a fuss over how unfair it was that his siblings got all the attention, probably giving his parents a headache. Lucy was still young, but she amazed him. Well, I always like it whenever it kind of compares himself to people around him and how better they handle things, like the whole situation with Norn, becoming a shut-in. She did it herself, didn't need anybody. She was stronger than me. Before he knew it, it was a day of the departure. Rius, Edis, Roxy, Sylphie, and baby Sieg. 4 parents of the family would all be on this journey. Rius was surprised they hadn't traveled together already. Yeah, very big surprise there. I mean, the closest you can have... he does mention the idea of the coronation, which it technically at the time kind of implied that Sylphie wasn't there. But apparently she was. But, they didn't even mention the idea that Roxy was there either, so... Yeah, I think they just showed Edis and Rudius and Lucy. But yeah, definitely a surprise that not all of them. And it makes sense because Sylphie chose after Ariel's thing to become the stay-at-home mom, taking care of the family. While Rius knew it was a bit insensitive to Sylphie and Sieg, he felt a little excited. He was like, no matter how you cut it, it's still going to be exciting. Hell yeah, we'll get to go on a journey together. Well, we'll be off now. Gotcha. Take care now. See you later. Lilia and Aisha nodded as usual. Only Lucy looked the slightest bit reluctant as she held onto Aisha's hand. She was doing her best not to let her emotion show on her face. Reese felt he ought to spend more time with her once the situation with Geese was settled down. And then something else comes up, and then something else comes up, and then something else comes up. This is the burden of somebody in this position, is you always something else comes up, and it sucks. It sucks. Maybe after this. Maybe once this is done. Maybe after this. But yeah, that picture's super cute. Picture's super cute. Little Lucy gotten such a cutie. Like, little Lucy, we haven't seen... When was the last time we seen Lucy? I guess it was probably when the pictures... It would be the pictures with the Sacred Beast, right? It's been a long time. It feels like it's been a long time since we've seen Lucy. But she looks super cute. Super cute. Super cute. A few hours after departure, they arrived at the Divine Continent's border. They were on the furthest northeastern edge of the central continent. A vertical precipice that they strained to see the top of was towering in front of them. On either side, the ocean stretched into the distance. The cliff face was more than a simple bare rock. A number of local inhabitants believed that gods resided in the cliff itself, so its surface was dotted with ladders and footholds. According to Orsted, a shrine dedicated to worship of these gods was found 200 meters up. Further above that, there were stakes driven into the cliff face to assist with climbing. They'd been installed by someone who tried to climb long ago. It wasn't clear whether they made it to the top in one piece, but most figured that he fell before reaching the top. There was a road on the right, but calling it a road was a bit generous, as it wasn't much more than the remains of a barely walkable series of footholds. It was patchy, but it continued all the way to the Demon Continent. While it was no doubt a harrowing path, it was apparently safer than climbing upward. Quite a few people had traversed it from here to the Demon Continent and vice versa. That sure is high. Edis stared up with a hint of excitement in her voice. Her arms were crossed, as though declaring this was no obstacle for a first-rate adventurer. She's trying to stare down the thing. She might have the bravado of a port town kid to live up to his ancestors. But sadly, this was the end of the Central Continent, not the end of the world. Sylphie had the look of incredible unease, given her current mental state and fears of heights. Perugius couldn't blame her. Yeah, that was like something that totally popped in my head again. Actually, it popped my head back in when they were going to go see Perugius. It's like, yeah, she's stressed out. Now she got to go to Perugius' floating fortress. And now now she has to go up a ladder or an elevator for 3,000 meters. I'm sorry, 3,000 feet. Roxy spoke up with a shaky voice as she stared up. Rudy, how are we going to climb this? Her voice seemed to plead to Perugius to have a plan. He did. He wouldn't have them rock climbing with a newborn baby without a plan. I would think that they would establish this beforehand. Like, would he not tell them his plan before they got there? This way, everyone. He led them towards a part of the wall that was relatively bare of footholds. Not that the presence of them would make a difference, but he didn't want to make life harder to future travelers. He used earth magic to create a box that could hold about 4 adults with breathing space, one that was heavy but sturdy. He then added an entrance, as well as windows to check their surroundings. All aboard. Once everyone was inside, he closed the door. Edis tilted her head and looked at Perugius with the corner of her eye. The heck is this? Now, let the master do his work. Perugius placed his hand on the ground, called up 4 stone pillars, fixed them firmly to the back, then pumped in some mana, causing the box to slowly move upwards. Eep! Oh, well, this sure does seem like a safe way to do it. Perugius felt a smug grin coming on from Roxy's praise. This is an original spell of his. Elevator. It's an original spell. I name it Elevator. It's like, wow, what a great name, dude. He used it once before, back in the Beggar Continent, but he put even more thought into the passenger's safety this time. The pillars lifting the box were kept sturdy, with plenty of mana, ensuring they wouldn't break. Creating pillars that could withstand a trip 3,000 meters required a massive amount of mana. So he did a baton pass every 50 meters by creating new pillars. He figured they'd be fine, but in case he got tired or ran low, he could make a hole in the cliff and slide the box inside for a breather. Yeah, pretty crafty idea. Sylphie glanced out the window while holding Sieg. A moment later, her face went completely pale. She then walked, she's like trauma of falling. Is that trauma of falling again? She then walked to Perugius and plopped down beside him. Given how complicated things had gotten over the past few weeks, it warmed his heart to see that she still relied on him. Man, talk about boring. Edis sat down, but only because she'd grown bored of the view out the window. It's better this way. We can't go rock climbing with a baby on board, right? Humph. She turned up her nose, but due to her not hitting him, he assumed that she completely understood. Perugius wouldn't let a scratch get on those two during this journey. Still, no amount of heroism would make up for forgetting to name Sieg. That's gonna be a thing that's gonna carry on forever. It did hit me a little odd, the fact that he said he won't let a scratch get on those two. It does make me obviously see that, yes, one partly is because Sylphie is in a bad state right now. But he's particularly saying that I won't let those two get hurt. Won't let Sylphie or Sieg get hurt on this journey. He's not saying Roxy. He's not saying Edis. Those 4, I won't let them get harmed. But I think that is sort of a mindset that he has, and the idea that they are there as defenders. He sort of does see that Sylphie, obviously, a long time ago, has become a protector of the home, a nurturer of the home, not a fighter. And yes, granted, I would argue we have not seen... She's a strong fighter. Sylphie is a strong fighter. She knows silent spell casting, all that kind of stuff. She used to fight assassins. But compared to Edis and Roxy in this situation, those two are seen as being defenders too. They're both guarding as well. They're there. They came on this journey to be protectors. Sylphie is carrying Sieg, who is the goal of this whole thing. So I kind of do see them as being more vulnerable than Roxy and Edis. Several hours passed. Perugius' plan for the pillars went off without a hitch. Sylphie kept her eyes on Sieg the whole time. Roxy tried to lighten the mood with a little light conversation. Sylphie wasn't her usual self, but she managed to respond. It was small talk. Roxy's grumbling about her work, happenings at the school, the last prank Lucy pulled on her, asking about how Otis and Lotta were doing, that sort of thing. Perugius would have liked to join in, but he had to focus on the pillars. Edis, on the other hand, took a position by the window and gazed outside. The scenery was lovely. As the ground slipped away, They got a better look at the flock of giant creatures flying between the clouds. Rurius wondered if they were blue dragons. He'd never seen one up close. Reaching the 1,000-meter mark, avian monsters started to come into view. They were giant birds, probably 3 meters long, wingspan of 6. They were also flying around the box and squawking at them. It was hard to tell if they were scared of the new object or territorial and trying to destroy it. The box was built incredibly tough. It wouldn't break from a few monsters poking it. It swayed a little bit, though. Each time, the color drained from Sylphie's face, and Sieg started crying. Roxy would reassure them that everything was fine. Not that Roxy knew anything about the box. Rurius knew they wouldn't fall. If they might, he would fix it to the cliff wall. As they continued on, now and then monsters would poke their heads into the windows. Edis would quickly lop them off. The floor got a bit gory, but they were all used to it. Still, after some time, Rurius slotted the box into the cliff face to rinse it down and take a break. Lilia and Aisha had prepared them some sandwiches before they left, so they dined on that. Having a bite to eat while looking over the vast scenery outside wasn't half bad. It's nice to chill out like this every now and then. Edis was gazing out the window while chomping on her sandwich sloppily. Really, Edis? Mind your manners, chided Sylphie. Yeah, I get it. Edis clearly didn't get it. It had been a long time since Rudy had seen this particular fight. Hey, Whittle Sieg, it's Daddy. Time to get in the bath, champ. Rurius was looking after Sieg while Sylphie ate. He changed the diaper and made a bathtub out of earth magic. His hair was really green, and his ears were maybe a bit longer than humans. His face was a perfectly average of Rurius and Sylphie's. Naturally, he'd been worried if he didn't have these features. Might have been somebody else's. Might be somebody else's. Sieg laughed when Rurius brought his face close to him for a peekaboo, then stared off into space when he moved away. When Rurius picked him up, Sieg was stared deep into his face. When Lucy was born, she looked incredulous at every movement she made, which made Rurius worry that she might be a reincarnation. Rurius was on his 4th child now, so he stopped having those doubts. No matter how many children he had, he knew that he'd love all of them. When he offered his index finger to Sieg, he gripped it tight. He was pretty strong. Babies were born pretty strong, right? The moment after that thought crossed his mind. Yow! Rurius heard a snap accompanied by a sudden rush of pain. His instinct told him to yank his hand away from Sieg, but he took a breath, then calmly used his left hand to peel Sieg's hand off his finger. When he looked at his index finger, where that pain was coming from, it was broken? Seriously? No way. Sieg? Sylphie rushed to his side, and her eyes went wide the moment she seen his finger. Huh? Rudy, your finger? Yep, it's broken. She was at a loss for words. Eventually, she lifted her hands to Rudius's, wrapped them around his finger. A faint glow came from it, removing the pain. Silent casted healing spell. Bravo. He still can't do that. She's the only one that can do that. It's still like, there's still like a sense that he's like so jealous. Like I could never do that. Sucks. Thank you, Sylphie. Don't mention it. He's a strong one. Yeah, he got me too. Sylphie showed her wrist. There was a vivid hand-shaped scar on it. Did this boy strangle a serpent while he wasn't looking? He hadn't left their sight over the past month. If he's this strong as a kid, then he's got a bright future as a swordsman. Rurius thought that he could set out to slay a Hydra or something. But didn't that guy's dad die in the story? Rurius would be another Paul. Yeah, there's another connection there to Paul and the Hydra and, yeah, Hercules. You never know. Sylphie chuckled. After seeing Zenobia, I feel like it's not a guarantee. Despite Zenobia being a little wild when he was young, he grew up to have a perfectly healthy obsession with dolls. That's probably what Sylphie was referring to. She might not have known it, however, but he was a capable man on the battlefield. In raw force, but also courage and cunning. Yeah. Again, like, she probably only sees a side of him that Rurius seen before. Rurius only seen that other side of him because he went to Chiron and seen how freaking capable he was. I could teach him to use a sword. Ez chimed in. She's so excited. But no, there was a side of me that almost, like, right here with him getting his finger crushed, I'm like, oh no. Zenobia, he snuck in that bedroom. But no, you can't pass down the blessed nature that way. That they mention that fact that yes, you can't just have them bed somebody and you get another blessed child. It doesn't work that way. But yeah, the joke did pop in my head. But that also did make me kind of afraid of where's Zenobia right now. Now, yes, the assumption here is that the strength is coming from the Laplace aspect. The Laplace aspect that the child has in it right now is making them extremely powerful physically. But yes, there was a side of me that thought, what if this is the nature from Zenobia? Because I mentioned the idea that they only appear when another one dies and you can't pass it down. So yeah, there was assumption that I had in my head is what if Zenobia died and that passed on? Which yes, does bring up the question mark. Is the blessed/cursed aspects, is it Laplace aspects? Does mankind itself see these as blessed and cursed children? Again, they're all the same. It's just an alteration of the mana flow, whatever, causes it. It's not one's a blessed child, one's a cursed child. It's just simply they get, possibly, a Laplace aspect. They just don't know it's from Laplace or that it's called a Laplace aspect, so they call it blessed childs and cursed childs. That aspect from them. So Zenobia right now, he didn't mention it. Could Zenobia have an aspect? Again, Rudius didn't note it. I don't think they even noted it back when they went to the column before. So that's probably not true, but I kind of wonder. Just a thought. There was once a time where Rudius doubted Edis could be a teacher. He couldn't deny that Norn and the other students were learning plenty from her. He wouldn't refer to things she taught as classes, but from what he heard, the expertise she passed on was valuable. Still, compared to Rajurd's "Do you understand?" or Paul's onomatopoeic grunts, she was leagues more helpful. Her teachings were probably more close to Giesling's common sense. I like it's got the Paul's just grunting. It got Rajurd's "Do you understand?" and then Gisling's "It's just common sense." They all have classifications. Edis considered it her duty to teach swordsmanship to the children, so she even prepared wooden swords for them. Lucy was already swinging a sword under her tutelage. All their kids were getting their extracurricular education in early. Looks like our children will all know how to handle both swords and sorcery. Roxy planned to teach them magic. Lucy had started practicing spell incantations little by little. When it came to learning magic, the sooner the better. Kids that age had more mana than they knew what to do with. They wouldn't have any problems if Rudius left the magic education to Roxy. The whole brew was bound to be Saint-tier magicians by the time they were adults. I can't wait to see how everyone grows up. Sylphie broke out into a smile and agreed. It was a relief to see a smile on her face after so long. Again, right here in Sylphie's mind, she's once again connecting it. That's right. I have all of them. I'm not alone. Even if I think that Rudius can't be here to help, which he's showing right here that he is. I'm right here. I'm helping you. We're gonna keep him safe. Even still, it's showing I have Edis. I have Roxy. They're all helping me. We're all gonna keep these children safe and bring them up as strong, healthy adults. They resumed their long ascent. They stopped seeing avian monsters around 2,000 meters. In their place, they saw monsters that looked like winged goats and snake-necked lizards. The lizards lived in the crevices of the cliff face. They popped their heads to the window that faced the cliff and startled them all. Their long necks allowed them to maneuver their heads with alarming precision, and they were coming for them. Well, until their heads left their bodies in 5 seconds flat. I'm surprised it took 5 seconds. I'm surprised 5 seconds. That should be like within a second. Edis had to be like right there. Just done. They must have evolved their necks so they can drag their prey into the crevices of the precipice. Excluding those guys, their trip was uneventful. They bagged one of the goats for dinner and ignored the rest as they continued the climb. After swapping pillars over 60 times, the world outside was blanketed in thick fog. They had to be poking into the clouds by now. It was already night. Their box was illuminated by a lamplight spirit, but it was fatigued. Reese was conflicted whether to stop for a nap or continue climbing. Given their elevation, they should be close. As the thought crossed his mind, the fog cleared, and with it, the view outside the window. Not just one facing away from the precipice, but one facing towards it as well. Reese stopped raising the pillar. Outside, a grassy field shimmered in the moonlight. It was the Divine Continent. We're finally here, boys. After 22 volumes, going into the 23rd volume, we're finally going to the Divine Continent. I really am kind of curious what that'll end up being, because I'm assuming there's nothing on the front here. I glanced at a side glance, and I'm assuming that's the grassy field with all them there. But yeah, I am very curious about the Skyfolk and how they're going to accept this situation. I hope that Serval doesn't go there beforehand and tell them, like, hey, my people, kill him. I don't know. I'm curious how the Skyfolk are going to accept the situation. I am really curious as to what this baptism will be. I think it is going to be something that either safeguards it, or is just going to be a simple thing where Perugius wants to try him out, see how much he wants to protect this child, see what a father would do. Because again, he doesn't understand the mind of a father. He doesn't understand the mind of a husband. He doesn't understand those things. He never had them. So this could be just him trying to see what they would do. What would you do? What are you going to do? But I think there's probably going to be something to do with that baptism protects the child. Or, I don't know how, I would assume that Orsted would know this. Or, does the baptism cause it to happen? Does baptism cause it to happen? Does he want it to happen? Does Perugius want it to happen so he knows when it's going to happen, where it happens? Trigger it. I don't think that would be the case. I really don't. Mainly because, again, he'd rather it happen to somebody that he doesn't have to deal with Perugius and Orsted. But still, I know, excited. excited to see what's come up here. This is like I'm super excited for this volume. This is I'm already, again, this recording. What's the raw of this recording? We're going on 3 hours. Not that long of raw recording. Probably 2.5 hours, but still, it's like couldn't help but talk a lot in this one. There's like so much in my brain that I still haven't finished. I even like jumped into this volume without even talking about what I thought of when I watched the previous Mushoku Monday. How I kind of have a thought in my head, the possibility of this guy that Geese went to at the end of the last volume possibly being Nanahoshi's BF. Again, I was kind of thinking it might be the guard that is with Ariel, but I feel like it's been so long, I feel like we're going to finally bring him up again, because they sort of just put him in the background, just like Nanahoshi. And I wonder if possibly it'll be that guy. He said he had like a bit of baby fat, little baby fat, which would make sense if he also came to this world with his body. That he's still young. He still looks like a kid. Still a teenager. Who knows? Or he could have been reincarnated in that world. But the question is why he's becoming a hero. Is it because he's got this kind of chuny nature of like, yeah, I read all these stories in my previous life about being a hero. Might as well be the hero in this world. But that would be weird because Nanahoshi came there as a human. Had no strength. Has no capability of using magic or anything like that. Maybe this guy did. Maybe he's trying to become a hero so that she sees him. If she's possibly there. I don't know. Anywho. That's the first 2 chapters. I'm pretty sure I'll probably think of something else I didn't talk about again, because these first 2 chapters are super meaty. So I'm probably gonna have some stuff to bring up next to Mushoku Monday, but we'll do that when we get there. But I hope you guys enjoyed this Mushoku Monday. Hope you guys are excited for us to get in this volume. I wonder if this might be a volume that people are more excited about me getting into. I heard a couple people getting excited about 23 being their favorites, which again, most of the time I kind of assume why. When there's certain people that say they really like a volume, I usually got to go, I wonder why. But we'll see. It's been fantastic already, getting some great insights into Sylphie and her acknowledging what she created. Again, I think it's a lot of her acknowledging what she created. What she created in the Grey Rat family. What she did. Acknowledging what she did. And accepting it. It's good stuff. It's good stuff. But I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of Mushoku Monday. As per usual, greatly appreciate you guys' support. Hey, chat. Hope you guys did well. Hopefully you kept your mouth shut. Last week you were all bad chatters, and I bet you were bad chatters this week. Friendly reminder. I want people to be reminded of this, by the way. I'm fine with slip-ups. Fine with that. We have some great mods. As much as they delete a lot of stuff, they get a little trigger happy. Don't get mad at the mods. I gave them full rights to do that stuff. If you have a problem with them deleting your comments, come to me. I chose them. I gave them that right. They have full rights to do that stuff. But I want to remind people, if you get too much, they understand, and they're fully patient. You guys don't understand how many people I see their messages getting deleted on a regular basis, and I literally go, if they're really bad, you guys can go ahead and hide them from the channel. I've given them that right, but they're being very patient with y'all. They understand when you guys are being malicious or not. But I have given them that right. So if you guys get a little bit too crazy with the spoilers, and it seems like it's intentional, like you're trying to spoil things, you will get removed from the channel. I'm just going to remind people that they have the right. I've given them the keys to remove it from the channel. So be a little more cautious about what you're posting. That's all I'm going to say. But they've been great. Please, guys, in the chat right now, say thank you to Adrian. Say thank you to No Earthly. They are fantastic. I cannot express enough. Without them, without those 2 mods being present in the chat, taking time out of their day every single week to come here and moderate the chat, the premiere would just be you guys talking to each other. I couldn't be a part of it, really is what it is. I wouldn't be able to be a part of it. And so please thank them in the chat right now. Their help with this whole thing and this journey has been absolutely fantastic, and I cannot express that enough. Yes, greatly appreciate everybody else for your support, your kind words. Thank you so much, chatters. Thank you so much for everybody that drops by. Those that drop by for the VOD later on, thank you guys so much for being here, supporting the channel, sharing this out, telling your friends, all that stuff. It means so much to me. I'm super, super freaking excited to get into this volume. I think I have a feeling these next few volumes are going to be really crazy. We're coming up to the end of it, and it's shocking that we're finally here. So as slow as I've been, it's shocking that we're finally here, right? We're getting towards the later part of it. But yeah, of course, as per usual, greatly appreciate everybody that supports the channel monetarily through Patreon, tips, links, super thanks, memberships, all that stuff. It means a great deal to me. It's your guys' money that literally keeps the lights on, keeps me doing this, and continuing forward. But yes, with all that said, until the next Mushoku Monday, y'all take care. but he learned recently that as Orsted's subordinate, that as Orsted, Reese would have taken a knee too, but he learned recently that. But he learned recently at. But he learned. The lizards lived in. The lizard lives in. The lizard lived. The lizards lived. The lizard lived. I can't say the lizard lives. The lizards lived. The lizards lives. The lizard lives. The lizards lived. The lizards lived. The lizard lived. The lizards lived. And snake neck lizard. And snake neck lizards. And snake neck and snake neck and snake neck lizards and snake neck lizards. Why can't I say snake neck and snake neck?
Perugius wouldn't be satisfied with you. Perugius wouldn't be satisfied if you used a teleportation.